third graders. So I thought we would continue in Because of Winn Dixie because we had to stop. So when we left off, Opal had just met Gloria Dump. Remember? So we're on chapter 10. I'm going to start here. I told Gloria Dump about everything. I told her how me and the preacher had just moved to Naomi and how I had to leave all my friends behind. I told her about my mama leaving. And I listed out the 10 things that I knew about her. I explained that here in Naomi, I missed Mama more than I ever had in Whatley. I told her about the preacher being like a turtle, hiding all the time in his shell. I told her about finding Winn Dixie in the produce department and how because of him, I became friends with Miss Franny Block and I got a job working for a man named Otis at Gertrude's Pets. And I got invited to Sweetie Pie Thomas's birthday party. I even told Gloria Dump about how Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry called her a witch. But I told her they were stupid, mean, bald-headed boys, and I didn't believe them. Not for long, anyhow. The whole time I was talking to Gloria Dump, she was listening. She was holding her head and smiling and frowning and saying, is that all right? I could feel her listening with all her heart, and it felt good. You know what? She said when I was done. What? Could it be that you got more of your mama in you than just red hair and freckles and running fast? Really? I said. Like what? Like maybe you got her green thumb. The two of us could plant something together and see how it grows. To test your thumb out. Okay, I said. What Gloria Dump picked for me to grow was a tree. Or, well, she thought it was a tree. To me, it looked more like a plant. She had dug a hole for it and put it in the ground and patted the dirt around it tight. Like it was a baby. Like I was tucking it into bed. What kind of tree is it? I asked Gloria Dump. It's a wait-and-see tree, she said. What's that mean? It means you gotta wait for it to grow up before you know what it is. Can I come back and see it tomorrow? I asked. Child, she said, as long as this is my garden, you're welcome in it. But that tree ain't going to have changed much by tomorrow. But I want to see you too, I said. Said Gloria Dump. I ain't going nowhere. I'll be right here. I woke Winn Dixie up then. He had peanut butter in his whiskers, and he kept yawning and stretching. He licked Gloria Dump's hand before we left, and I thanked her. That night, when the preacher was tucking me into bed, I told him how I got a job at Gertrude's Pets, and I told him all about making friends with Miss Franny Block and getting invited to Sweetie Pie's party. And I told him about meeting Gloria Dump. Winn Dixie lay on the floor, waiting for the preacher to leave so that he could hop up on the bed like he always did. When I was done talking, the preacher kissed me goodnight, and then he leaned way over and gave Winn Dixie a kiss, too, right on top of his head. You can go ahead and get up there now, he said to Winn Dixie. Winn Dixie looked at the preacher. He didn't smile, but he opened his mouth wide like he was laughing, like the preacher had just told the funniest joke in the world. And this is what amazed me most. The preacher laughed back. Winn Dixie hopped up on the bed. The preacher got up and turned out the light. I leaned over and kissed Winn Dixie too, right on the nose. But he didn't notice. He was already asleep and snoring. Should we read in one more chapter? Right, chapter 11. That night, there was a really bad thunderstorm. But what woke me up wasn't the thunder and lightning. It was Winn Dixie, whining and butting his head against my bedroom door. Winn Dixie, I said, what are you doing? He didn't pay any attention to me. He just kept beating his head against the door and whining and whimpering. And when I got out of bed and went over and put my hand on his head, he was shaking and trembling so hard it scared me. I knelt down and wrapped my arms around him, but he didn't turn and look at me, or smile, or sneeze, or wag his tail, or do any of the normal kind of Winn-Dixie things. He just kept beating his head against the door and crying and shaking. You want that door open, huh? Is that what you want? I stood up and opened the door, and Winn-Dixie flew through it like something big and ugly and mean was chasing him. Winn-Dixie, I hissed. Come back here. I didn't want him going and waking up the preacher up. But it was too late. Winn-Dixie was already at the other end of the house. I could tell there was a spring sound that came from Winn-Dixie jumping on the bed, and there was a sound from the preacher like he was really surprised. But none of it lasted long, because Winn-Dixie came tearing back out of the preacher's room, panting and running like crazy. I tried to grab him, but he was going too fast. Opal, said the preacher. He was standing in his bedroom, the door to his bedroom. His hair was all kind of wild up on top of his head, and he was looking around like he wasn't sure where he was. Opal, what's going on? I don't know, I told him. But just then, there was a huge crack of thunder, so loud that it shook the whole trailer. And Winn-Dixie came shooting back out of my room and went right past me, and I screamed, Daddy, watch out! But the preacher was still confused. He was probably sleepy. He just stood there. And Winn-Dixie came barreling toward him like he was a bowling ball. And the preacher was the only pin left standing. And wham! They both fell to the ground. Uh-oh, I said. Opal, said the preacher, lying on his stomach. Winn-Dixie sitting on top of him, panting and whining. Yes, sir, I said. Opal, the preacher said again. Yes, sir, I said louder. Do you know what a pathological fear is? No, sir, I told him. The preacher raised a hand. He rubbed his nose. Well, he said after a minute, it's a fear that goes beyond normal fears. It's a fear that you can't be talked out of or reasoned out of. Just then, there was another crack of thunder, and Winn-Dixie rose straight up in the air like somebody had poked him with something hot. When he hit the floor, he started running. He ran back to my bedroom, and I didn't even try to catch him. I just got out of the way. We're going to stop there for today. We'll finish more. We'll read more another day. Bye, guys.